Today we're going to be making a chocolate porter with honey from our backyard, as well as some lactose sugar. So like a chocolate milk honey porter. I don't know. This is going to be a little experimental. We'll see how this comes out. Okay, my first step was weighing out half a pound of the Viking chocolate malt and the crystal malt 80. These are going to be steeped before we add extract. All right, so I just added 1 gallon of Medford, Oregon tap water to the brew kettle, and I'm going to bring this up to 160 degrees, and I'm going to start steeping these specialty grains in our brew bag at about 160 degrees for 30 minutes. Got the hop additions weighed out. These are cryo hops, Cascades, so the alpha acids are much higher, so it takes a lot less. So this is 0.25 ounce, 0.25 ounce, and 0.5 ounce. These are going to be our hop additions throughout the boil. Here we have our milled chocolate malt and caramel malt in a steeping bag that I'm going to add to the brew kettle once we hit 160 degrees, and we're going to steep this in about a gallon of water for about a half an hour before we start the boil. Okay, we're just about to hit 160 degrees, so I'm going to steep this bag of specialty grains, chocolate malt, crystal malt 80, already getting some color. We'll steep this at about that temperature, between 160 and 180 or so, for about 30 minutes. All right, we're about 5 minutes into steeping the specialty grains, the chocolate malt and the caramel malt crystal 80L, and we're trying to keep it at around 160, so it's about 170 or so right now. I have it on medium, cooling it down a little bit, but it's starting to smell really good, chocolatey, coffee kind of aroma, and giving off a really good rich darker color for the porter. And we'll just keep this going for another 24 minutes. Okay, the 30 minutes has ended for steeping. So I'm going to need 2 hands to do this, but I'm going to put this in that and place it over this to let it drip all the rest of the liquids back into the wort. Okay, so I've placed the grain bag here in the strainer and letting it drip the rest of the wort into the wort, so we're not missing any flavor or any of that liquid. I'm going to take some fresh water and start kind of pouring it over the top of that to kind of rinse the rest of the color and flavor out of it. Chose to use CBW Traditional Dark Pure Malt Extract this time. We're going to go ahead and add that to the brew kettle. I just turned it on high heat, so I'm going to want to stir this so it doesn't burn. Now I'm going to add 5 ounces of lactose sugar. I'm going to turn off the fan so it doesn't get all crazy here. Knock that in there. Stir it up real quick. Get that fan back on. Continue to the boil. Okay, we have topped up to 3 gallons and we've got it on high heat. And I'm going to keep it on high heat until we reach a boiling point with this wort. Here's what it looks like before it starts to boil or hits a hot break. There's lots of foam across the top. And once we hit beyond 212, you'll see it break up. That's when you're going to want to start the boil and add the first hop addition. Alright, so I'm making a yeast starter, so I boiled some water and had this in a bucket of sanitizer. I just took that out and filled it with a half a cup of boiled water. And I'm going to let that cool down to, I think it says 85 to 95 degrees, and then I'll just sprinkle this on top of that, and I'll cover it with cellophane saran wrap, clean saran wrap, and let it sit for 20 to 30 minutes without touching it. Sanitizer solution here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pitch the yeast now. So I've got it sanitizing in here as well as the scissors that I'm going to use to cut it open. I'm going to soak my hands in there, pick that up, cut it, pour it on there, and then I'm going to cover it with some saran wrap. All right. Last step is here. 40 seconds until the last step, which is 5 minutes before the end of the boil. I'm going to add the whirl flock, half a tablet. I'm going to add 3 pounds of our fresh backyard fall honey, and our last hop addition of Cascade hops, which is, I think, it's a half an ounce. And we're going to boil that for 5 minutes, and then we're going to start to cool this using our wort chiller, which is sanitizing in our sanitized bucket. And then we have a part of the sink filled with cold water, and we're going to get that going. Here we go. Whirl flock, hop addition. Give that a quick stir. And I'm going to add the jar of honey. Just making sure this doesn't boil over. Do the jar in a second here. Here goes the honey. One minute left in the boil. Our yeast is looking nice and frothy. That's what we want to see. So that'll be ready for pitching as soon as we get the wort cooled to we want to get it as close to the wort temperature as possible, so that's what we'll do. We got the wort chilling, cooling from the outside and the inside with the sanitized wort chiller. Got most of the drippage going the other side of the sink. I'm going to cover it with maybe the sanitized portion of this and let it cool rapidly. Okay, we've got the wort chilled down enough. We're going to add cool water to top it up to 5 gallons, and there's only maybe 2 3/4 gallons or 3 in there. So we've got the wort cooled down enough. Now we're going to siphon it, rack it into our carboy that's pre-sanitized. There's still a little bit of foam, no big deal. And then we're going to pitch our yeast once we get topped up and get the gravity reading. Here we go, racking the wort into our carboy, and just under 3 gallons probably or so. And then we'll top up to 5 gallons and take a gravity reading. Got the wort transferred. Now I'm going to top up with Medford, Oregon's finest tap water. Just straight from the tap. I'm going about room temperature, maybe a little warmer. We want to pitch the yeast I don't know, around 80 degrees or so. You want to keep it around the same temperature as it is right now. I have a 5 gallon mark on here. And so hopefully if I fill it to 5, the original gravity will be okay. It's okay if it's a little lower, that's fine. And we'll just keep going until we get to 5 gallons. It topped up to just below the 5. There's some foam, so maybe it'll settle to 5. I'm going to take a gravity reading now and see what we got. Looks like the original gravity is about 104.7 or so. 104.7. I think we were shooting for 104.6. So here we go. The yeast is looking excellent. Frothy, frothy. Looks like there's a nice bubble on top. We're gonna go ahead and pitch this. Let's take a look at the temperature, and then if it's around what temperature the yeast is, we're gonna chuck it in. So before we pitch the yeast in here, I'm gonna aerate it by shaking it really vigorously. And then we're gonna throw the yeast in, and we're gonna move it to the closet. Okay, Here's what I do. There's some saran wrap over it. Got my hand over it and shake it. Lots of oxygen into it. All right, now we're gonna pitch the yeast. I've got everything sanitized here. The funnel comes out of the sanitized bucket. Pop that right on in here. We're gonna take our yeast here. Probably can't see anything. Hopefully that'll stay there for a second. Nice frothy starter. Here we go. Get that all in there. Frothy froth. Shake that in. Okay, and discard that. Cover that back up. Shake again. Let's aerate that in, shake it up nicely. Okay. Now we're going to put our sanitized cork in there. Stopper. Okay. I hope I don't push that in. I think I've done that before. This shouldn't go in. I'm going to have this tube, blow-off tube that I've made out of a airlock. I'm going to put that in there. And then I sometimes use saran wrap to secure this down, rubber bands or whatever. And then I'm going to put the other end of this into a bucket of sanitizer in the closet. We'll let it get going. Okay, yeast is pitched. Wort is aerated. There is a sanitized cork in here. Secure it on there so it doesn't blow off. I use a saran wrap and kind of tie it around there. And this was an old airlock. I took the top off of it and just secured a piece of tube into a bucket of sanitizer. And that's just to keep microorganisms from getting into our beautiful wort with a specific yeast in it. So let's hope for the best, and hopefully this will kick off. It looks like it's maybe in the 80s temperature wise, and I think that's approximately what our yeast was. So it should get going relatively soon. We'll see. All right, here's the porter. Checking for fermentation. There we go. Bubbles have began around 5 p.m. I think I pitched yeast at around 2 p.m., so about 3 hours. This is going to end up being a vigorous fermentation, I'm guessing. All right, so this has been fermenting for 2 weeks exactly to the day, and now it's time to keg it up. I find 2 weeks is kind of a sweet spot, at least for me, to ensure fermentation is complete. So first I'm going to use my hydrometer and take a final gravity to figure out what the approximate alcohol by volume is, and then we will move on to kegging it up. I've got some my rack and cane for moving the beer into the keg, all sanitized, and I've got this keg already sanitized as well. So soon we'll just need to rack that liquid into this sanitized keg. Okay, so we have our estimated, let's see, let's do this spin again here. I've tested this a couple of times here on the hydrometer, and it's come up to 1.011 for a final gravity. Somewhere about there. and we'll go ahead and plug that into the program here to see what we get. All right, so we've plugged that into the program, the measured final gravity of 1011, and there's the measured original gravity of 1047, making the measured ABV approximately 4.8%. So that's a sessionable porter. It'll be on tap here at home, so that's actually a good thing. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do about kegging it up. All right, so here's a little bit of the beer. Let's see if I can get in the frame there. I tasted a little bit already. It's definitely got some chocolatey coffee notes, like a porter should. Let's see how it goes. It's very smooth and balanced. I think that'll have a good mouthfeel once it's carbonated from some of that lactose that I added. All right. Yeah, lower on the alcohol. That's kind of a standard for most porters, I guess. It's just under 5%. That's good. Let's keg it up. Okay, here we go. This is pre-sanitized tubing, pre-sanitized racking cane. Put this into the keg here, pre-sanitized keg. Hopefully I've got this at the right height. And let's go. We are racking beer into our sanitized keg here. And I just want to kind of hold it just above the racking cane bottom, just above the trube, or this layer of yeast cake. You don't want to suck too much of that into the keg if you can help it. All right, we're off to the races. Okay, we've successfully transferred the majority of that beer into this keg, and it's now nearly full, so I'm going to cap it up and put it under carbonation. Now we're all hooked up in here, so I'm going to apply some pressure. Okay, I just applied the pressure to the beer, just about 40 psi, and that's through this tube here. So yeah, we're gonna let that sit a couple of days, and then we'll go from there. All right, folks, this will probably wrap up the video. It might be a little undercarbonated now, I'm not sure. I overcarbonated at 40 psi, and it was very frothy. I did that just to force carbonate over a course of a day or two, and then I turned it back to about 12, and it was pretty high for a while, and now it's like settled to 8 psi. It may be too low now, but we'll see. Let's give it a go. Actually, this looks nice. I didn't pour it very well, but looks like the head level has gone down up to an appropriate level. Look at that. Now we're talking a little bit more. So, I mean, I'll probably just leave it there and just learn to pour a little bit better. But cheers, everyone. Clink. It's a delicious, I guess it's a Braggot, which is like half beer, half mead. But this is like a Braggot porter. And it tastes very coffee-y and nice. It's just a nice balanced coffee flavored porter that's made with half honey. The head is very good on it. I added some lactose. And I think that was a good idea. So cheers.